Hey guys, it's the Handbuilt podcast. I'm Alan at Revival Cycles.
I'm Andy James Dio.
Chris Auerbach, also known as Ted.
And I'm Stefan, also known as Beardy Troll.
He's getting beardier. We're all back. We haven't done a podcast in quite some time. I did one during the Handbuilt show with some random players that were in town, and it was fun, if not a bit haphazard. But we're going to try to take this a little more seriously and get into our podcast. Everyone in this room works at Revival Cycles. Ted is a new player in our peanut gallery. Not a new player at Revival, but a new player with a microphone in front of him. How long you been here, Ted?
It'll be 3 years in July.
Oh my God. How is that possible?
We're still in the honeymoon phase with you. That's how we feel. But the excuse to do this podcast today was that we realized doing a podcast is good for us to sit down and talk to one another without any customer stuff, any motorcycles, any real business motives, just to kind of hang out. And for 2 weeks now, have you been back 2 weeks or a week and a half?
Week and a half, yeah.
So Ted Auerbach, not Chris, took a long motorcycle trip and came back a week and a half ago, and I have refused to talk to him about it because I wanted to sit down as an excuse to do a podcast with him to talk about it then. Now. So this is it. This podcast is all about Auerbach.
Yeah, you haven't let me share any stories with you.
I wanted to hear it fresh for the first time when I could actually concentrate instead of hearing some of it and then going, all right, I gotta go. Like there's always something going on here.
Well, and then Andy and I kind of needed to jump in because we haven't been able to go on any adventure rides in a while. So this is total vicarious enjoyment.
That's actually probably a better point.
And I haven't talked to Ted about it because I'm an asshole.
That's fine. I've had time to make my stories better. So by the time it gets to you, they'll be really awesome.
Well, it's kind of like that whole I'm the married guy and you're the single guy. So, I want to live through you. I want you to tell me all about what's going on out there in the crazy world of motorcycle adventure riding that I haven't had in a while. I haven't gone anywhere. I mean, I guess I've had a few. It's motorcycle trips, but not off-road like you did, and solitary trips at that. So, anyway, tell us, where'd you go? What'd you do? How long were you gone?
So the basis of the trip was wanting to go to the Grand Canyon, and I decided to stitch together a couple of the backcountry discovery routes.
Right.
So there's a New Mexico BDR, Arizona BDR, and then
what's BDR?
Wait.
Yeah. So BDR, backcountry discovery route, right?
Yeah, exactly. Backcountry discovery routes are developed by a group. It's a nonprofit organization that does. Actually, I don't know if it's a nonprofit. Actually, they are an organization that puts together.
Let me guess. If they're not nonprofit, they're probably still not profitable. So either way, they're a nonprofit.
Yeah, well, what's crazy is they put together these amazing maps, GPS tracks. They do little short videos. All the waypoints are there. And the only thing they charge for is the full documentary if you want to buy their video. Otherwise, you can download the tracks, download the maps, everything.
And by tracks, you mean download
GPS
the routes,
coordinates and
the routes. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So yeah, I kind of put my own route together of the New Mexico version, the Arizona version to get to the Grand Canyon. From there, picked up some other tracks. There's a great community of adventure riders that share all of their maps and their routes and all the points of interest. So I built my own, kind of got to that point, and then I left it open where I wanted to go after the Grand Canyon.
I'm kind of jealous. I'm sitting here thinking about how organized you are. If I'm going to go on an adventure ride, or what little I've done, it's like, all right, well, I'm going to head out to West Texas, and all I'm thinking about is what I'm putting in my bag and that my bike's going to make it.
That's kind of like any ride with you, actually. It's like, wait, does the motorcycle even run?
Yeah, I've had that ride.
Alan wants to go for a ride. It's show up at the shop at the agreed upon meeting time, and then make the bike that he wants to ride run.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of amazing.
It's because you guys are such amazing mechanics
Mm-hmm.
that I just know it's going to be okay. That, and we have a large plethora of motorcycles to choose from. It's like, oh, that one didn't run. Put that one back up. Let's get another one.
Sure. I mean, I'll
That's
make
happened more than once.
I'll make
when
the
you're
joke.
in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, well, I know. Sorry.
Right. Yeah. Actually, being solo makes the planning much more important.
Now, I did go on a 6-month ride on my motorcycle, and I did prep a bit for it. I picked my most reliable motorcycle, a KTM, and I put racks on it, and I put Pelican cases, and I had all that stuff. But I'm saying more about like I guess I had a GPS thing when I went to Europe, but that was it. There was no like, which direction am I going to go, right? I mean, I had a general direction, whether it was north, south, east, or west, but what roads or any of that. So actually, you talking about it makes it sound easier emotionally to go off-road and head somewhere, is what I mean.
Yeah, I found having even a daily goal, like where I knew where I wanted to camp, or at least a location to get to each day, and so I knew the mileage, and it actually allowed me to spend more time stopping at like points of interest or viewpoints, or even doing video and photos. It just gives you a little more flexibility there.
So what drives you on the ride? Because for me on a ride like that, it's like, okay, when can I get to the next comfortable bed and nice shower and meal? What is driving you forward? Because are you packing all your food and tent and bed and all that, so you don't care where you end up? Or
Right, exactly. I camp off the bike, so
it's points of interest for you.
Yeah, it's points of interest. There's just different landscapes and stuff like that to get to points that you wouldn't be able to get to in a car, or if you had to hike there, it's a 10-mile hike, whereas on a bike that can be a half-hour ride.
Right.
So having the camping gear, I can get to where I want. If I can't get to a nice hotel or a town, I just pull over, set up the tent, sleep.
What percentage of your ride was on dirt versus pavement?
The planned route was about 80% off-road. This year, with the weather and all of that, the forest fires were really bad, so I ended up like backtracking and doing a lot of rerouting. So it was about 50-50, maybe a little less off-road.
Yeah, but hang on one second. We
Yeah.
should clarify something. You were planning to do 80% off-road. Now, what bike were you planning to do this with?
So the bike is a
Prepare yourself. The onslaught of judgment is about to befall you.
a bike is a very personal choice.
No, I bring this up just so that the listeners can kind of contextually put this in.
Tell us about
in-
your sexuality.
Yeah.
It's not personal.
This bike in particular is a bit unusual. It's a 2007 BMW G650X Moto.
Nerd alert.
I've rehearsed that so many times to not mess it up. But it's a bike that BMW built for 3 years. It's got a single-cylinder 650 Rotax motor. It's very under stress, so it's very reliable compared to some of the other KTMs and CRFs and stuff like that.
Sorry, I feel like I know about every motorcycle in the world, and I have talked about your trip, and every time I've talked about it, someone's like, what's he riding? I was like, he's on a BMW something blah,
Right.
blah, 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 because I don't even know it. It's such a rare model that...
Now, BMW did make some appropriate models for that type of trip. What was it, like the GS650 or something like that?
So, were they making the GS650 at the same time they're making this G650?
Not that I'm aware of. They built the G650, and then the replacement for that was really the F800, from what I understand. But
Right.
So, but you were saying 2000, what year was this bike?
07 to 09.
So they stopped making the GS650 by the 07?
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought you would know.
You
Come
think
on.
I'd know. I'm actually not a BMW guy at all. I've always ridden more the Japanese brand Suzuki's.
Suzuki, yeah.
Yeah, and so I got into the BMW just because I found this small, lightweight single cylinder compared to like the GS's, where they're more of a touring bike.
Okay.
But
All
this thing started out as a off-road incapable machine because it was basically a supermoto, like as a sumo bike, like super motard, best case, right?
Right, absolutely. The bike comes in 3 different flavors actually: a enduro, and then a more of like a touring bike, and then mine was the supermoto. So that is a cast wheels, 17-inch street tires. That's the way it came. I bought this one because the other versions are very hard to find. We're in the middle of Texas. There's not a lot of dual sport riding, and so finding one is difficult. So I found this one, had to have it, bought it, and then set to make it appropriate.
So you were specifically looking for the G650?
Yeah, I had seen the other versions called an X Challenge,
Right.
and yeah, I'd seen them, and they just seemed really cool. And when this one popped up on Craigslist for cheap, I had to buy it.
Andy, did you know that?
Did I know?
That he was looking for that bike?
I didn't know he was looking for that specific bike now.
No, okay, all right.
And Now, when you go for this specific bike, you're able to do that because you know a few things about building some bikes because you do have a day job after all, and you more or less were kind of trying to build this thing into basically an X Challenge. Is that a fair?
Yeah, the X Challenge, the biggest difference is the wheels. So they run a 1821 spoked wheel, which is
Dirt bike.
Yeah, dirt bike, better for off-road. And I wanted to convert to that, so obviously doing this almost daily here and having the machines to do it and the capability, it was a no-brainer that I could do that.
So the suspension is basically the same?
On the X Challenge, they have the air shock, and a lot of people actually replace that for a coil spring. And so the X Moto comes with technically the better suspension.
Coil spring. Okay.
Yeah.
We're getting nerdy into it, but
no,
I'm
we're getting
curious.
super into it. But this is
yeah.
all part of the planning, in my opinion, because we got to watch all the planning that happened, and I think that's something that's really easy to gloss over. Is that like half the trip actually happens in the months before the trip, while you get to prepare everything.
Sorry, I'm thinking about my trip again. It's like, hey, I've got a KTM. I'll take that. There was no like.
I'm just thinking about inappropriate wheel sizes and tire choices in my my off-road riding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. You've got a Tiger.
I've got a Tiger with 17s, and I've ridden it off-road with street tires.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and you've got the low mount fender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all right. So you chose this bike, knowing there's not a lot of support for aftermarket parts for it either. So you're not going to go buy a rack.
Yeah, I'm not gonna buy a rack. The fuel tanks they have are $800. There's one of them, so same thing. Being able to fab my own stuff, so I went in and built a bash plate and a luggage rack, and what else? Got handguards for it because, of course, the BMW handguards are ridiculously expensive.
Okay.
So yeah,
And fairly ineffective, if I was going to guess. Most factory handguards, the best place
Yeah.
for them is in the garbage.
So you get all this stuff, and then you've got on your pack, you've got tent, food. What do you got? An extra fuel tank.
yeah, I've got a Rotopax auxiliary fuel tank, tent, sleeping bag, and then change of clothes. A couple, rain gear, warm weather, cold weather gear, and then I carry like an ultralight backpacker stove and just a can of fuel. And basically, I make coffee in the morning, and I carry a couple dehydrated meals.
Okay.
And yeah, it's very similar. A lot of parallels with ultralight backpacking,
Okay.
just because you don't want to have to carry a heck of a lot of weight on the bike.
Yeah. So the mistake I made was I loaded up my bike with all this stuff and rode to New York, and by the time I got to New York, I sent home 2 big boxes of stuff. I had way too much crap because I realized I'm not going to camp as much. I like showers.
So there we're back to that whole planning thing.
I overplanned. I brought
right.
more stuff than I wanted. What?
Over planning by taking everything and then just parsing it out along the road, just leaving a little bit behind every so
At that
so
point,
often.
I
feel
didn't
like
really.
that's-
No, I was over prepared because I knew I was gonna be gone from home for 6 months. I didn't know what I was gonna be comfortable with. I didn't. You know what I mean?
But hold on, everyone I know that's done a large solo trip on a big bike, everyone says that. I took way too much stuff.
that I wasn't gonna use.
Yeah.
I mean, gosh, the camera gear alone I had, I sent half of it back. Anyway, so you were a little more prepared because you've done something like this before too, which you
Right,
did on your
yeah.
Suzuki, your DRZ.
Yeah, a couple summers ago, I did the Continental Divide ride on my Suzuki. So I've been through it, and I did. This was a very similar trip, so I knew what gear I wanted to pack. This time you mentioned camera equipment. This year I packed a lot more camera equipment, so I had.
Are we gonna get to see that stuff?
Yeah, if Corona gets to editing some of it.
Oh, you gave it all to Corona.
Yeah, I mean I've got gigs and gigs of data.
By the
but
way, Laser's the editor now,
Oh,
so
get on it, later.
should force him to do it. Editing is giving Corona carpal tunnel right
No.
now. So anyway, okay, so you leave day one, and then I saw on Instagram your girlfriend was there.
Yeah,
in a car, in your truck or
Yeah, so
something.
I just forgot to mention that part,
Yeah.
didn't I?
Yeah.
So part of the trip was.
I mean, that was your girlfriend, right?
It
All right,
was. Yeah.
good,
Which
okay.
photo?
Oh, yeah. This isn't being broadcast live, so it's okay. We could edit that out. All right.
Yeah, she also wanted to go to the Grand Canyon. She rides, but she's just not. She's not good enough on the bike just yet. Doesn't have the confidence. So she got in the car and basically came up with her own trip to meet me at the Grand Canyon. So
Okay.
they camped at her and a friend camped at some other spots, and I rode solo for a few days, met up with her, we did some hiking, camped together, and then I'd ride solo for a while.
Okay.
So when are y'all buying the RV?
Oh man, she already wants to upgrade her Subarus so she can.
We've got a
pull,
really nice
like-
Sprinter bus that would look good on you.
Yeah, yeah. The bus, I would go for the bus. You know,
We'll
hang
do
a
some
hammock in
payments
it.
if you want. Figure it out. Okay, so all right. Now's the stories. When did the first problem happen?
Yeah. 10 minutes into the ride, I had the first problem. So that's where the preparation sort of ended, right? I spent all this time building the bike, getting my gear, coming up with the tracks, and I just ran out of time to do any sort of test ride. So by the time I got to the start of the trail, get on the trail, it's basically the test of, is my gear strapped down? And so I get on the trail out of Cloudcroft, New Mexico, start riding. I'm kind of, there's some trepidation, and I start to get into the swing of it and feel good. And then I feel something on the bike a little weird, so I pull over and I look, and my tent is gone. Just absolutely gone. I've been riding for about an hour and a half, 2 hours when I noticed the tent. So then I backtrack about 100 yards, find the tent, think everything's great, repack it on the bike, find a new way, hopefully it doesn't fall off. And while doing this, I see that my spot tracker is missing. So if you don't know what a spot tracker is, it is the GPS satellite tracking device that also allows you to basically SOS, call the cavalry.
So this is like kind of your one, like, get out of jail, like, this thing's sort of your lifeline.
How big is it? How big is this thing?
It looks like an old BlackBerry.
Okay,
Wait,
shouldn't it be
what's a
on-
BlackBerry?
Is that like a beta? Or all right, so
I think
wait,
I think it's like a laser disc, actually.
if it's the size of a BlackBerry, why don't you have this on you? Because if you get thrown from the bike, you can't crawl. I mean, over a cliff, you can't crawl back to the bike to get it.
It's a very good point.
I wasn't trying to be corrective.
No, if you read forums, people talk about whether you should have it on yourself.
Yeah,
or
I
on
would
the
want it
bike.
on me. Because the way I ride, I'm not going to be near the motorcycle when I crash.
Yeah, you're gonna ejected.
I'm going to be way
true.
off. Yeah,
Completely
yeah.
true.
I've just always either clipped it on one of the bags, or sometimes I've had a mount that goes on the bars. But this time I had put it in a pocket on my tank bag, or my tail bag, and I think I just forgot to clip the carabiner. So the pocket, the Velcro gave way, and the spot tracker was just ejected.
Now, we should clarify that in retrospect, we realized that the tail bag was of relatively low quality. It was procured from a yard sale for $1. Is the story I heard?
Yeah, it was a loaner bag that guy bought for $1 from a swap meet. Because I was on a budget, I bought my BMW and just spent all my money.
Did you borrow that from Jeff Berry? Is that?
Oh no, this was from
Sounds
Huge.
like it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm staying with you. I'm not saying shit. Go ahead. Keep going.
Again, a 10-mile test ride before I, drove all the way to New Mexico would have been nice. So,
Or sorry, keep going.
yes, buying proper stuff. I
No,
did.
what I was gonna say, or a discussion with your boys.
True.
Yeah. Keep going.
Anyway, it's a spot tracker, right? You should be able to. The whole
Spot
point
it.
is to find it.
It shouldn't be hard to find.
So I ride off the trail to get to cell service, look up the website for my tracker, and I look, and it's literally 10 minutes into the ride, and it's sending out a beacon. And so I don't want to backtrack on the trail, so I kind of find a better way around, take the coordinates, find the spot, or find where it's sending its last signal, and can't find it anywhere. It stopped sending the signal, but it was still there. They cut off by default about an hour after no movement.
Oh,
To save battery.
To save battery. It makes
Yeah.
sense.
So I look for it for about an hour, walking around up and down the trail, kind of off the side, can't find it anywhere. And then I hit that point, like, this is, as Stefan was saying, this is my only connection to the outside world. If I'm solo and in the backcountry and I break my leg and I can't move and I can't get out, no cell service, I push a button and
Cavalry comes.
Yeah, they send whoever the nearest rescuer is.
Okay.
So it's peace of mind, and while I'm sitting there trying to decide, should I continue without it, or what do I do?
Yeah.
So I end up finding one in El Paso, about an hour and a half south, and this was part of having to ride way more pavement than I expected. So I bailed off, rode all the way to El Paso in 100-degree weather to buy a new spot tracker.
That ride from Cloudcroft to El Paso is not a very exciting ride either. I've done that one once or twice.
Have you?
I'm looking
Yeah.
at your face as you're shielding your. I don't think it's embarrassment. I think it's more like you're remembering the frustration of the hour and a half ride, going, fucking huge.
Find anyone to blame but myself.
It's huge as fuck for selling me this fucking tank bag. All right, so tail bag. So keep going.
Yeah, so the great thing is I get down to El Paso, buy the spot tracker, trying to call Spot to get it activated because I want to transfer my activation. Can't get through, whatever, do it online, get everything working. Now in a better mood, I can get to the point I wanted to stop for the night, which is truth or consequences.
Hold on. Where did the thing go now, the spot tracker?
Spot tracker. So as soon as I bought that one, got it activated, I had a call from Spot that said, hey, someone in Cloudcroft called us, found your spot tracker, and wants to return it to you.
So you got a spare.
I still haven't gotten it back.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, it's out there somewhere. So I don't know if
I bet I could look it up.
if this fine young gentleman found it and turned it off and then took it home and called, or if it, when it fell off the bike, if it broke.
I want to know how many times you threw the bike on the ground, because that's really, that's where the fun stuff starts happening.
Wait, isn't that a measure of your success? If you're with
Well,
Stefan.
Depends on how you define success. Yeah.
Well, if you don't throw the bike on the ground, you haven't gone fast enough.
You just could go faster.
To be more precise.
Well, I think like if Stefan hasn't thrown the bike on the ground, we're probably not laughing hard enough either.
That's true.
I would thought you were gonna say he's about to. If he hasn't, he's about to. So yeah. So you get the recorder. I'm sorry, what's it called?
Spot tracker.
Spot tracker.
Yep.
Secured in your underwear. Now you know where it is at all times.
Right.
And you can motor on happily without worry.
Right.
And then.
So I get to the camp for the night, kind of reset, get my map for the next day where I want to go, get back on the dirt in the morning, and get to ride like really nice trails, something called Chloride Canyon.
Sounds peaceful. Chloride's not good. Sorry. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
but it's this little narrow canyon in New Mexico, and trail just runs right down into the riverbed and dry riverbed, and it's a good trail, not too difficult, not too it's not just like a fire road. So that ride was really good. To answer the question about dropping the bike, I'll use the diplomatic answer that when I'm solo, I only go about 60%, right? Because I don't want to risk hurting myself or something like that. But really, it is a matter of survival, I guess. So I never dropped the bike. But in true adventure fashion, I was pushing the bike in a parking lot.
Oh,
At a Target.
Now it was a deep, loose gravel parking lot, and I was backing the bike up and got my feet all tangled, and it just started to go over.
I have a similar story.
Yeah, good.
The last adventure ride I did, there was a group of us, and low water crossings. If you don't know what a low water crossing is, we have a lot of them here in Texas. It's basically.
Which I've always thought was weird because you should call it high water crossing.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's basically a lot of times it's a poured cement
It's
sort
a-
of trough.
Hang on. It's a low point in the road.
Yes.
At certain points, the water will overflow over it, and there will be running water across the surface of what would otherwise be a highway.
It should be called a low wet crossing.
They get
Sure.
They get really slippery.
Very.
But several people on the ride had thrown their bikes down.
Hang on. We haven't really qualified accurately how slippery they are. Like, when I studied physics, they talked about this thing called frictionless bearings. And frictionless bearings don't actually exist, but if they did, they would be made out of whatever the fuck is in a low water
Sorry,
crossing.
I just remembered I witnessed
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I like that.
I just witnessed Stefan dump my Moto Guzzi in his first low water crossing.
That's not true.
That wasn't
isn't-
you?
That was not me. I did not drop your Guzzi. You were remembering Chris Davis dropping his bike while I was riding your Moto Guzzi. That's what actually happened. But
God, I've
that's
slept
cool.
since then. Sorry, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Close enough.
Yeah, sorry. I believe you. Yeah. Go ahead.
Anyway, so pretty proud of myself at the end of the day. We'd ridden quite a bit of dirt, quite a bit of tarmac, lots of low water crossings. Hadn't dropped my bike at all. Pull into the gas station at the end of the day, dab a front brake, and from about 20 feet away from the gas pump, drop the bike on the ground, and it's still moving fast enough that it slams into the pump.
When did you do this?
That was out in Lakey.
Recently?
A couple months ago.
Nice.
All right.
God, where are the GoPros when you need them?
Now, my lower water crossing crash story goes a little bit like this. I'm out cruising to a secret swimming hole here in Texas on my KLR, amazing bike, with some super knobby tires, some super off-roady stuff.
bike ever.
Obviously, it's a KLR. So, nothing to it, and I see this water crossing, and I just go into it at probably 45, maybe 50 miles an hour. I've never done this before. I don't realize what I'm doing.
That's so fast.
Like,
Wait.
I slowed down to 45 miles an hour. Like,
most of the time you'd want to go through these in first gear, basically at idle.
clutching first gear at walking pace. So I hit this thing. I don't hit the throttle. I don't hit the brakes. I don't do anything. The front end and the back end change position, and I fall down. And I end up sliding at least 300 feet. This was like this long, like football field length, low water crossing that must have been perpetually wet because it was just algae.
Where was this?
I don't know. It was out towards some secret swimming
in
hole
Texas, okay.
near where we went to the destruction derby.
Yeah.
Anyway, and I slid so far, just on my ass, just sitting like in a chair on my butt, watching my bike pirouette on its pegs, sparking and doing all the things.
That's what they do.
Yeah, and I could not believe how far I slid. I grew up in the north. I know what ice is like. I know what winter is like. I know what an ice rink is like. Low water crossings are slipperier than that by far.
Slip and slide. I can just call them snot.
Oh, they're
slippery
terrible.
snot.
Anyway,
But you watched Chris Davis crash then with me.
I think that was actually after that.
No, because you didn't live here. And KLR
No.
wasn't here. You were riding my Gucci. You would be riding my Gucci if you had your own motorcycle.
I rode your Gucci because I was visiting before I moved here, but that was after I met you because when I did that was on the very first trip when I was coming down and I first met you.
Oh my God, you guys are such an old married couple.
I know.
Seriously.
And then Andy, when we had Andy, remember when you bore Andy for 9 months?
It's a repressed memory.
Anyway, so low water crossing.
Not many of those on my route, but I appreciate y'all's story because on one hand I feel like everyone,
an idiot.
Everyone's done it.
everyone drops their bike,
Everyone's
no
done
big
it.
deal. On the
Not
other
me.
hand, I'm like, man, I didn't do anything.
You're
that cool.
perfect. We know.
I'm perfect. So you crashed your bike in a parking lot at a Target?
It was
That actually makes me really happy.
it was at a campground, and it was loose gravel, and then I dropped it. And I looked around, no one saw.
So it didn't happen.
It didn't happen.
Why are you telling us?
Yeah,
You could have let that one go.
I should have.
Hey,
I like to do those sorts of things as in front of as many people as possible.
Oh God, he does. Yeah, he waits till there's a crowd. What? Hold my beer. Watch this.
Famous last words.
So then what?
Oh my God.
It's like we're doing a podcast and a workshop. What the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
They probably can't even hear that. It's okay. Keep going.
Andy's not downstairs, so who could be hammering so loudly?
It's not like it's his job. Anyway, so what else went wrong?
What else went wrong?
Hang on. Things are off to a little bit of a rocky start, but now you've got a new spot. You've repacked your tent. You've got things back on the
Yeah.
bag. It's sort of coming together nicely.
I kind of also want to hear about the bliss, because the bliss happens, you know. You get on that ride and you're on a single track and you're by yourself and you realize all this months of planning and this new amazing motorcycle you've just purchased. We didn't even talk about the preparations of this motorcycle. I forgot about that. But you had a moment. When was your first moment?
The first moment was a spot called Tarahatso Point, which is on the Grand Canyon.
Excellent enunciation.
Yeah, thank you. I practiced
Yeah,
that.
You did. On a hot so point.
But are you familiar with Horseshoe Bend?
Yeah,
It's Insta famous. Everyone's been there.
it's true.
That place is.
Do you have a selfie?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
Okay, let's
God.
put that in the video.
Yeah,
Sure
we
thing.
need to see this selfie of you. And hopefully there's like 4 million people behind you because it's so popular now.
No, see, that's the thing. So I didn't go to Horseshoe Bend because that's
Oh.
what all the tourists do. So I found this spot that is on Navajo land. You have to have a permit, and you have to ride about 20 miles off-road Pretty barren. It's 95 degrees. It wasn't the most enjoyable ride, but after you ride that far, the trail literally ends at the rim of the Grand Canyon.
Awesome.
So if you weren't paying attention, you would just launch off for thousands of feet or whatever it is.
You
And
made it because you're here.
I made it.
Yeah.
I made it all the way across.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Did
Yeah.
not go off.
Evil
Okay.
Knievel couldn't quite get there, but you managed on the BMW. So
Yeah, no problem. It's a revival bike. What are you gonna do?
Click here to buy now.
Yeah, exactly. No, that was the bliss moment. I think was all the planning and looking at photos at this point.
Getting there.
Yeah, and then actually getting there and being able to park the bike, feet from the edge, which my knees were shaking the whole time trying to get the bike close. Because again, if I just stumble and drop it and it falls over the edge, it's game over. So yeah, I get to park the bike and I do lots of photos and selfies, of course, because I'm not too proud to do that.
nor should you be.
Yeah, so
Fully clothed, I assume.
fully clothed.
Yeah.
Although I was riding in gear, and as soon as I stopped and parked the bike, it was clothes off. So it was basically shorts and no shirt because it was so hot.
Yeah, no, I don't see. That's the other thing. When you told me you were going for a ride in June, I was like, I mean, I know you want sunny weather. That's part of it. But you're going to the desert. It's always sunny out there.
True. Now, that's one of the mistakes I made was that 2 summers ago when I did the Continental Divide ride, I did it in July, and I went through New Mexico. But by definition, the Continental Divide
It's high.
is the highest, the peak or whatever, And
So it's cool.
It was cool. The ride was beautiful, and so this time I was like, oh, June, this will be better, right? But
No.
No,
No.
like you said, riding to the deserts and the lower elevations, it was pretty brutal.
I once rode Death Valley on that Kawasaki. I rode from the
Kawasaki what?
Cop bike.
I couldn't remember the name of it.
It was a cop
KZ.
bike. It
Cop
was a
bike.
KZ1000 Police Interceptor.
So a friend of Stefan's, a longtime family friend of Stefan's, gave him a KZ 1000, and I don't remember how it came about. You couldn't go, or I could go.
It was
or-
after Bonneville. You headed out to Seattle for something, and because you were in Seattle, it was a great excuse to pick up that bike and bring it back this way.
So I got on this bike in Seattle, that cop bike with cop tires and cop exhaust and cop gearbox and whatever, and rode from his ma's place in Seattle to Austin. And I went through San Francisco. I got this tattoo. I did all this fun stuff. It took like 2 weeks to get home. And I rode Death Valley one day, and shit, I don't remember where I was. Just say that I went on a road, headed through Death Valley, and I'm like, what's the big damn deal? I'm on a motorcycle. I've already ridden 1,000 miles. This thing's reliable. I'm all good. And I get on a road that's twisty, going back and forth. And I'm throwing that cop bike around like I'm on chips. I'm on the show, man. I am just, and I'm hanging off of it. Like, have you ridden with Chris Davis on Twisty
So
Roads?
hang on, were you Eric Estrada or the other guy?
Eric Estrada.
I was going to
definitely.
say, I don't think I'm as good as either one of those dudes, but I'm not even, how can I compare myself to Chips
And it is sad that it's
Bam,
just
bam, bam,
it's
bam.
Eric Estrada and the other guy.
and the other guy? I
Sorry,
don't remember.
it's too bad.
Yeah. Anyway, so I'm literally hanging off. Have you ridden with Chris Davis before?
Oh yeah.
And you know how you like, he's Rossi on every corner, right? He's Marquez. So I'm riding like that because that's what it takes to get this bike to go around corners. But I'm having a damn good time through this mountain pass. And then I realize I'm in Death Valley. I realize where I am. And that thing only held, I want to say 2 gallons or 2.5 gallons. It didn't hold a lot of fuel. I just know that 100 miles was about right. 100 miles is where you need to get some fuel.
And you need to be careful out there too, because there's a lot of places where you can, 50 miles between gas stations.
But I'll tell you, I wasn't thinking at all. I'm using GPS. I'm headed the right way. I know where I'm going. Surely there's going to be a lot of gas stations. And I get through that. I go straight for 10 miles, and then I turn right and start to ride. And I'm at 100 miles, right? And I know it's time to get gas. I'm at 110 miles. It's time to get gas. I'm at 120 miles. It's time to get gas. And I realize,
Oh, and
shit.
you're looking, and all you see is straight road and horizon.
Straight. And I'm thinking, I'm such a dumbass. I'm such a dumbass.
You don't see
I
a
am
light
so
pole.
Stupid.
You don't see a electrical pole. You
You pull out
just
your phone,
see.
no reception. You don't really know where you're going. I mean, I know I'm going the right way, but I don't know where the next gas station is. So I slow down to 30 miles an hour, 25 miles an hour, thinking this is how I'm going to be the most efficient to get through this. I'm way past reserve, right? I've hit reserve a long time ago. And I remember there was a turnout and there was a cop sitting in a turnout. And I pulled into that turnout and I walk up and I ride up and I knock on his door, on his window.
Wake him up.
And he looks at me and I'm like, hey man, I don't want to, I'm going this way and I'm about out of gas. How far is the gas station? And I think he said, I don't know. And he knew exactly how far it was. And he was just annoyed. I was like, are you heading back that way or this way? And he said that way. I was like, okay, I'm going that way. If you see me on the side of the road, would you please stop? I'm almost out of fuel, but I'm still, he's like, sure, whatever. I leave. There's no cars.
But no respect. I mean, you're on a cop bike. You might not be a cop, but you're halfway there.
Remember, I was wearing my Vanson with the yellow things here, and I'm wearing an open face Ruby helmet. I look like a cop too, right? And he has no interest in my cop bike. And I even put the revival.
You were missing the shades and the mustache. I guess.
So I had the shades and I had a beard.
You needed a mustache.
Yeah.
It was the mustache.
Well, and I had the revival diamonds over where the cop logo badge was on the tank. Like it was well set up. Anyway, and I keep riding at about 30 miles an hour. Scared. It's at least 120 degrees. I am sweating my ass off. And I pull into the town and the bike stalls. And I roll into the gas station and literally, and I mean roll so slowly that it stops in front of the gas pump. Even when I tell the story, I feel like it's bullshit. It completely happened. I get off the bike and there's people at the gas station and I start screaming and hollering. Whoa! Like I'm so stoked that I've made it this far. And I did what I'm supposed to have done all along. I went in and bought a spare 1 gallon can of gas, strapped it to the back pannier with a bungee cord and carried it full the entire way home to Austin. But anyway, that moment of having made it through, I don't know what was the worst that was going to happen. It was 120 degrees. I was going to roast my ass in the middle of the desert.
Yeah, it was going to be very uncomfortable and
for sure
just ruin your trip.
I had no food.
You wouldn't be able to tell that story. You would be talking about a much more miserable time.
Or death. It's called Death Valley.
That's what I hear.
So then, okay. So you have that moment.
I have that moment.
And
I do
then-
have a out of gas story, if you would like to hear that one.
Wait, you had gas. You ran out of gas?
Yeah, that's why it's a story, because this one's another one a bit embarrassing. But I did bring a 2-gallon Rotopax because the bike has about 140 mile range. So I packed this
pretty good.
fuel from Austin all the way to the Grand Canyon, never have to use the extra fuel. Get to the Grand Canyon and meet up with Carrie, my girlfriend, and we decide to go into the park and go to some viewpoints and do a little hiking. But I still want to take the bike so I can ride some of the twisty roads. She's in the car, and I want to unpack the bike, so I pull the fuel can, pull my saddlebags and everything, bring nothing but the camera equipment. We start going into the park, and I was thinking, man, this is a lot farther than I expected. But there is a gas station in the park. And so we're riding, and it's beautiful. The sun's going down. We do our hike and start coming back. And now, I'm on my 6th day riding, so I know the range, right? I know how far
It's going to run out. Yeah.
And I'm looking at it, and I'm at 112 miles. And I know how far the gas station is. I'm like, yeah, I got this, no problem. There's that bliss feeling. Just loving it, and then
I'm on the edge.
Just dies.
Because it's hauling 2 people too.
No, well, Carrie was in the car.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I was following her. What happened was, I'll explain. The previous gas station was the old style one where you can't run a credit card. You have to go in and pay. Yeah. And so I gave him $8 cash. Went out, filled the bike, but it didn't quite fill it up. And I was like, yeah, no big deal. What's a half gallon? Well, that's 30 miles.
I was going to say, that's 30 miles. That's what that is.
Yeah, so bike dies about 12 miles from the gas station. Carrie comes back in the car, picks me up, go to the gas station, find as many Gatorade and water bottles as we can find. Approved containers, if you will.
Yeah, certainly legal.
Yeah, fill them up with gas, and I have some video of that because it was pretty hilarious. But went back, filled it up. Little knock on the pride, but was able to get back. No big deal. And then the rest of the
It's
trip,
not so bad.
hauled the whole 2 gallons extra fuel the whole trip.
Just haul it around.
Never
Yeah.
used it.
Yeah, all I remembered was that I scratched the top of the painted pannier on the KZ1000 with that stupid plastic can the rest of the way home that I didn't need. I only needed it that once. Anyway.
All right, but here we've got a very useful and important tech tip here, and that is, fortunately, Gatorade bottles are compatible with gasoline. So when you're caught in the middle of nowhere, just go find a Gatorade bottle or other sports drink bottle, and that'll
I've
be
done
your
that a
jerry
few
can
times.
to get
Yeah.
you back on the road.
We've done that even just heading out to Lukenbach. I remember draining
That's-
gas out of another bike into a Harley or something. Yeah.
Yeah, we
I had
totally-
a Sportster. Remember, for a very short time, I bought a Sportster.
Oh, this must be before the infamous small Italian Motogiro out to the Harvest
Oh,
Classic.
God, here it comes.
But that's a whole different thing. I think we've
No.
told that story a few times on
On
podcasts.
podcast?
Thought we did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
pretty
that
sure.
sounds
Yeah.
familiar.
Yeah. Anyway,
Seems like I was there. It was
I think-
my fault.
this time we're out in the Grand Canyon.
Well, hold on. I want to know, at what point did you get in that zone where you're like, all I want to do is ride a motorcycle? Like, I don't want to go back to work. I just want to get up every day and ride a motorcycle.
Yeah, so after the Grand Canyon, we went to Zion and Bryce and did hiking. So I kind of took 2 days off from the bike, but I was also off from work. We did some hiking. It was great. It's beautiful, but then I was tired of the crowds, and that was a point where I was like, I know I have 4 or 5 more days. I just want to get on the bike, just ride, not have to worry about people and crowds and agendas and other than my own ride. That's why I love riding solos. I don't have to worry about, well, if I ride with Alan, well, does he want to stop for gas? Does he need to stop to pee? Does he want to get up at 5 in the morning? And no, he doesn't.
No, he doesn't.
But no, that's
Yeah.
I think that's the best part about riding solo, though, is being able to go as long as you want, or get up whenever you want and just go.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be taking a week off next week.
Sorry, I was going back into the Andy telling us why it's so great to ride solo. Get up whenever he feels like it.
Yeah.
Boom. Anyway, so
Children.
but I'm curious to know, like, I want to hear more about the bike. I want to hear that what was good or what didn't work, or like what didn't go to plan, because I mean, unlike me, you like to plan. So what didn't go to plan, and then did it make it better, or did it make it worse, or did it?
Yeah, as far as the bike goes, as you know, it had some idling troubles and wasn't running perfect. I made a few small changes before I left, and then I think the elevation actually helped quite a bit. It ran much better. So the bike was great, especially compared to
So what does that tell us about what its fuel system was doing at this level?
Yeah, essentially the fuel injection didn't know what to do. I don't know if it had a hole
Until
in
it got to 10,000 feet.
Well,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah,
So here's
what it
the
really
science.
tells you.
Here's the science behind what's going on there. My best guess, with limited information, is that as you go up in altitude, the air density is reduced. Therefore, you're getting fewer oxygen molecules, and therefore your mixture is richening. And that's
Yeah.
just showing us that most factory bikes are tuned too lean because they have to pass EPA requirements. As you go up in altitude, they actually run better. And that
Starts-
means if you don't live at altitude, you probably should richen your mixture a little bit.
I mean, yeah, they say putting just a computer on the KTM of my bike adds like 20% power just because it gives it fuel that it wants. Otherwise, it gets really good mileage and just running too lean and hot and whatever.
Yeah, riding at elevation, I was able to have it run better and feel like I had more power, and so it was really good. And I was gonna say, compared to the DRZ 400, which is still a good bike, but the 650, I mean, you can just lug it. You just leave it in one gear and climb a mountain.
Torque.
Yeah, just tons of torque.
Low end.
Not having to worry about downshifting and slipping a clutch or anything like that.
So knowing what you know now and having done that trip and having dealt with that particular bike, would you do that again?
No. Short answer, no. I liked the lighter
Hang on,
bike.
what does that mean? Does that mean that trip or that
Yeah,
bike?
that's what I
That
meant.
bike.
Would you take this
That-
bike on another solo adventure?
This bike, I think I would do more of a touring ride. The pavement miles, especially getting up into Colorado and the $1 Million Highway, where it's pavement, but it's really nice and twisty. The bike was perfect. I mean, it is a smaller bike, but for me, it was really comfortable, fun to ride. But as far as doing this trip, with the amount of off-road I did, it was too heavy for me.
Are you gonna keep it?
Yeah, I'll keep it this time. Yeah, last time I rode to Seattle and sold my bike and flew home.
What was that? The DRZ?
Yeah, that was
you
the
sold
DRZ.
in Seattle.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I remember that bike. It was a 400.
It was a 400, yeah.
How fast are you on the highway on a 400?
I mean, it would do 65. I'm sure I didn't love it, but...
Right, and you can wrap it out to 70, and then it really lets you know, like, hey, I don't appreciate this.
Yeah.
Like a KLR.
Yeah, it's about the same. The
Yeah.
KLR might just eke to 75, but that's about it. They're much happier at 55.
So I re-geared my 640 KTM when I went to Europe. And I'll never forget the first day I ended up on one of the Autobahns in Germany. And it was like, yeah, I can float along at 90. And it would float along at 90. It just wasn't comfortable. 90 miles an hour on a dirt bike on a highway is just too much. But
Enter
75.
the KTM 990.
Oh, God, yeah. Actually, I had lunch with Jeff Davis today, and he was talking about riding. He said Stefan's fucking bike got me 2 tickets because I just could not ride it at less than 95 miles an hour.
I think that's the problem with all those big adventure bikes. My Tiger 1050 is the same way. Like, you're doing 120 miles an hour before you realize it.
I don't call that a problem, especially with the 990, because that thing will do that 100+ cruise as long as you want. And then when you get where you're going, it will still crush it on single track. Like, I've had it on proper off-road
Crush it.
single track, and as a big fat pig, it is amazing.
I rode that brand new GS BMW, I said a 1200, the water boxer, and I put 200 miles on it a few weeks ago with Jenna on it, right? The two of us. And still, I was floating along at 90, 95, and I was like, this is not something I should be riding. This is a big tour. This is not an adventure bike. This is a touring bike.
And, okay, we're cool. You're still on the highway. Take that thing into single track, and then let me know.
I think they weigh like 550, 600 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Way too much. Although I will say the LCD screen, which seemed like high definition Dolby surround sound.
You guys are getting caught up
4K.
on. You're getting caught up on House of Cards.
We were watching Netflix while we were cruising on the road. Yeah, it was huge, impressive display. But I was thinking, this is not necessary anyway. So your BMW didn't have a 4K display, right?
It did not, no. It's pretty basic. You did remind me of one thing, that on the trip, my phone, which I was using as my GPS, decided to stop keeping a charge, stop recognizing the SIM card, and then just overheat. And again, not planning or not testing all this stuff out, I could have figured this out sooner, but I had to stop in Flagstaff, go to a Best Buy, and full motorcycle gear, walk in and say, hey, I need a phone as soon as possible. And, they're trying to upsell me and everything. But I get the new phone, get it on the bars, all excited, and I go to, do something with the map, and this phone doesn't work with my glove. So the old phone does, and it works great through the glove. And what I find is if I spit on my finger, it works.
Oh, there's so
How's
many
that?
jokes in there.
Come on, I
so
lofted
many
it.
jokes. Oh, lots of things work if you spit on your finger.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Stefan,
That's all.
Andy,
Not gonna touch that one.
I'm gonna let
smell the glove.
I'm gonna let all the 14-year-olds that are listening to this fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
I think they can do just as well as we can.
I figured you'd jump in and talk about capacitance and organic material. And
If we want to get into how capacitive touchscreens work, we can do that. But I figure that's covered in a different
You
podcast.
should have gotten a better phone. That's what it sounds like.
I should have. Yeah.
I've only been teasing you for like 2 years about that phone crapping out.
Yeah.
Get a new phone. It's time for a new phone. What'd you get? Some kick-ass Android phone?
Yeah, of course, the Galaxy S9.
Are those the ones that light on fire? Or
No,
is it the
I
7?
I think that was
Wait.
the 7.
Huh.
They're the ones that plug into like universal jacks and have a headphone jack and do things like that.
Because they're so superior. Yeah.
Well, no, they just think about what you actually need to be able to use the phone.
Says the guy who's carrying an iPhone.
Oh, no, my iPhone still has a headphone jack, which I use on a very regular basis.
It's going to suck having to use dongles and everything.
It is. It's kind of why I don't want the new one.
Yeah. Anyway, so we can talk about iPhones and your 2006 motorcycle, 2007 motorcycle.
All right. So now I know that you had a whole lot more adventure, and some of them are the very classic moves of adventure riding, which is no matter where you go on an adventure ride, you are going to have a flat. So what happened?
Yeah. I did have a flat, and it really was a result of riding in anger, and it kind of taught me a lesson. And what had happened...
Wait, when do you not ride in anger?
Whoa. Let's back up. What was it that caused you to be angry?
So the reroutes, there was a forest fire. I had to reroute. I was on pavement for hundreds of miles, and I finally get to a point where I'm supposed to jump on the trail, right? Get back into the zone.
And this is the same day or slightly after, the next day after you've had to go back off to find a new phone, and this is a few days after you've had to go back off to find a spot tracker, and like you've just kind of had to keep going off to civilization to re-provision this electronic crap that has failed for various reasons.
So you're riding with a hate rash.
Yeah, I have full hate rash at this point.
Really? Your vacation has turned into a job.
Right. I mean, it's still, better than showing up here every day. A joke. It was a joke.
You could have made it more personal. It's still better than seeing your ass every day. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I mean, it was, frustration from not being able to be off-road as much as I wanted or follow my intended path. And so I finally got to the spot where I was going to jump back on the trail, and a local rider, I stopped to talk to him, and he says, "You don't want to jump on here. It's mountainous, and it's rocky, and you can't do that on that bike."
Oh, great. Thanks.
Yeah, and it gets in my head, and I'm like, you know what, maybe I should go around. And so I go on the pavement a few more, I don't know, probably 10, 15 miles, and find the next spot.
I'm really surprised at your restraint, because if that was me, I would have been like, you said I can't do it, I'm going to do it anyway, just to prove you wrong.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. I had people that warned me about it. Like, they'd see me going down a road, and they'd be like, that's going to take you all day. I'm like,
I'm on vacation.
That's exactly what I'm hoping.
Right. They're like, we can't get through in our truck. How are you going to do it on a bike? And I'm like, well, that's why I'm here.
Do it on the freeway if I was just trying to get somewhere.
Right. Yeah. And so at this point, I finally get to the trail where I'm going to jump back on, and I realize I am basically through the mountains, past the mountains, and I jump on the trail, and it's like this lunar landscape. Right. There's no trees. It's flat, and it's packed red dirt with these weird like volcanic rocks, and so it's just straight, boring, and I pin it at this point, and I'm doing probably 50 or 60 and trying to dodge all the rocks, and there's one I just can't avoid, and I hit it straight on, and it jars me and basically gives me a pinch flat. Right, it bottoms out
front.
And so there is a very distinct feeling, and I know this feeling because I've done exactly what you're talking about, and it's this like resonance that comes through the bars, and you feel it in your fingers, and it's almost like you feel the pain that your rim just felt.
I thought you were going to say,
I know
you feel
that
the
feeling.
pain of the tube piercing. Yeah.
Yeah, and you just know it hits wrong, and you're just like, that was it. That was totally a flat.
So, as someone who rides 17s, cast 17s off-road occasionally, I know that exact feeling, and it's always like, oh, there's a new rim dent.
Hey, mental note, let's get him a tracker. Keep talking.
I felt that exact feeling you were describing, Stefan, where it rings through your body, and I slow down, and I'm kind of shook up, and then I realize the front end's starting to get loose, and flat tire. And that was the point where I pull over, try to get onto my GPS on the phone, and that's the first time it tells me no SIM card. So now my phone won't do anything. I don't know where to go, which way is the best, the shortest route. I don't want to stop right there because there's no shade, and there's not a lot of traffic. Like, I'm beyond the trailhead. So I decide to turn around, just limp it back on the whole time thinking I'm destroying the wheel or destroying the tire, and I limp it back about 10 miles to the trailhead, and I'm like, all right, made it. I have all the tools. I carry all the tools, spare tube, everything I need, right, to be able to do this trail side. And I again strip down because it's 95 degrees and I'm sweating, so I take my gear off.
Awful.
I unload the bike, get it propped up on a rock, get my tools out, and I go to loosen one of the pinch bolts, and the little cheap wrench that comes with the bike just flexes. Doesn't even try to turn the pinch bolt, starts to round it off. I'm like, all right.
Put that on too tight.
Yeah, it was Loctite. I was preparation. Didn't want it to come loose. So, I definitely didn't think that one all the way through. Get the pliers out, and I get the first one loose, and the second one loose, and the third one loose, and then the fourth one I cannot get loose, and it just rounds off the bolt. basically strips it. So pack it all back up, ride another 4 or 5 miles on pavement to the nearest village
With a flat tire.
with a flat tire. And this whole time, going through my head, like, am I destroying the tire? Am I causing more damage? But I really don't know what to do at this point.
Just keep going, yeah.
Just keep going.
It's just part of it.
And
Yeah, honestly, at that point, you don't have a lot of options. But as you know, to jump ahead a little bit and just to offer a little bit of insight, you can drive a fair ways on completely flat motorcycle tires, even with tubes, as long as you do it slowly, like less than 10 miles an hour. And the whole thing there is the heat generation. If you can keep the heat generation under control, you're not going to roast your tire, you're not going to wreck the tube, everything will kind of be okay at the end. Keep the horsepower down, keep the braking forces down, and you can get away with a lot. But in that moment when you're there and you haven't gone through it before, you're just like, oh shit, am I going to ruin everything? And I know that feeling too, because, well, yeah, I've had that experience.
Yeah.
It works better on the front than the rear too.
That's true, because the front doesn't have to do the braking. The rear does have to do the driving. And if you get too rowdy with the rear, you definitely strip out the stem of the tube, and now your tube is toast.
Yeah, you guys know I'm overly cautious. So I did about 3 miles an hour. Get down to the village and find a guy with the proper tool to be able to loosen this and go about my tire change. And I pull the tire, pull the tube, find a little pinch in there, a little snake bite. Get my new tube, put it in, seat the bead, or reinstall the tire. Go over to the air compressor at the little gas station and air it up. Sure enough.
Hang on. At what point did you cross your fingers?
I thought I had it. I thought as soon as I got that bead seated, I was so careful with the spoons, and I thought it was there. Yeah.
You pierced it.
Yep. Walked across the street, air it up, and it inflates, and then you just hear it just psh.
I don't know what it is, but for me,
So demoralizing.
every time I put a tube in a tire, it doesn't matter if I'm here in the shop on the tire machine or on the side of the road cursing and swearing profusely. It doesn't matter. When I go to the compressor with a tube tire, fingers are crossed.
Yeah.
Every single time.
I'm so bad at it, I try to get someone else to do it for me so they can take the risk. Because I don't want to have to deal with the demoralization of it.
Now, after I pinch flatted a tube repair like that about 15 times in one day, that was when I learned to cross the fingers. And since I've started crossing my fingers before I go to the compressor, I have not had a problem
Says
since.
the engineer of all engineers.
the most logical person we know.
That's data driven. Every time
absolutely.
he's done it.
Yeah,
it works.
Your sample size might be too small.
Well, yeah, after post finger crossing, there's a sample size of 0, so I can't really compare.
Please explain to me the mechanical consistency of why that works.
Well, rationally, it's that I got better at changing tires. Irrationally, I
'cause you
kind
did
of I
this
still
with
like
your-
crossing my fingers. Yeah,
Do
Okay,
you really cross your fingers? You're
Yeah.
dead fucking serious.
dead serious.
Well, but the thing we're,
Holy
ne- we're,
crap,
the
that's
thing we're not
awesome.
talking about though is that dirt bike tires are a pain.
Oh, I hate it.
They're the worst.
I didn't even
They're
know
the
there was
worst.
such a thing as a tire machine until I was 20 something for motorcycles. I thought you had to do it with spoons because that's how I grew up doing it.
See,
Yeah.
I knew that the machines existed. I just didn't think there was any hope of ever owning one until I was in my late 30s.
So,
Yeah.
it's
It's and I'm so angry and walked back over to the bike, and I did pack a scab, a patch kit.
Right.
And so in all my wisdom when packing it, I pulled the packaging apart, not to carry a bunch of waste, because I'm so good at this packing. I pull the packaging
we've
apart.
noticed with the
Yeah. And so I get the tube out and pull my patch kit out, get the patch, get the rubber cement, put both, patch both of my now pinched tubes. And
might as well. They're both on the ground.
Right. Yeah. I need a backup still. So I put the patches on, the rubber cement, and then I think to myself, how long does it take to dry? I don't have the packaging. I don't have a cell phone to get, to look this up in the
You've
age of
trashed
Google.
the instructions.
I've trashed the instructions. I've never actually used patches like that before with
Really?
rubber cement. Yeah. So I was kind of at a loss, and I decided the exact time for rubber cement to dry is the same to drink 2 whiskeys in the bar across the street.
Which
It's
is
less.
exactly what it says on the instructions if you had kept them.
I think that's
Yeah.
what it says. But yeah, I just, I reached that point where I I didn't want to push it. I just walked across the street, had some food, had a drink.
It's almost instantly that stuff. It's crazy how fast it can work.
Yeah, but I think that the whiskey and the food
That's a better
probably
time.
made the patch hold a lot better.
It
It's
probably
like crossing my fingers, I think.
Yeah, that kind of stuff has a way of changing your perspective when you come back to it too. It's a good thing to do.
So you got it back together.
Got it back together. Patches held.
Crossed your fingers this time.
Crossed my fingers. There was a slight bend in the wheel that resonated at about 30 or 35, but then went away above that.
It's fine. Just don't go 30, 35.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
no problem.
Yeah.
And you made it. You kept going.
I made it,
With
yeah.
that same tube.
With that same tube, right? Yeah.
Is it still in the bike?
No, man.
Wait, you had to do it again?
I realize how shitty my trip seems in retrospect now.
Hold on. Adventure is that like
Getting
going
through
and
it.
experiencing something that you can't account for everything.
Yeah,
like
talk 10 minutes.
Right.
Talk for 10 minutes right now about how great the writing was. You're like,
Well,
there was some.
hang
There was
on,
a
but,
good
like,
view.
let's quantify adventure a little bit. Adventure is not going on a Carnival cruise. Adventure is not going to the movies. Adventure is not going to a football game. That is not adventurous in any way because you know the outcome. It's almost a near certainty. When you go out into the middle of the backcountry with a motorcycle that you've really not tested and you know for a fact doesn't work correctly, that's adventure.
So if I interject for a minute. I took Chris Davis, convinced him to go with me to Costa Rica. We rented 2 KTM 690s. This is 2009 or something, 2010. And I'd done this before on my KTM and ridden a bunch and knew how to. I have this duffel, this big, waterproof duffel. I know how to use ratchet straps to strap it to the back of a bike without a rack on it so that it's secure and doesn't move. And, I've prepped him on this is going to be fine.
You have
We're gonna
a
go off-road.
system.
I have a system. I've shared my system with Chris Davis. We do the same thing. We get on the same bikes with almost the same bags. We go down there. And I think we're 30, 40 miles into the first ride off-road. And he stops. I circle back and I come back and he's got his waterproof bag is smoking. And I mean smoking badly. He is taking all his shit out of his bag and it's like he's completely, what is on fire? What is on fire? It was obviously rubbing the exhaust when it started to settle in, right? And he pulls out his DOP kit and it's his DOP kit. So and he had like spare toilet paper, he had deodorant and toothpaste. All of it is completely burned and melted together and it's completely toast. And he starts to have a meltdown right there. And I mean, he's melting down just like the DOP kit in the middle of this trail and like way out in the middle of nowhere in Costa Rica. And I stopped him and said, look, dude, that's actually what this trip is about. Don't worry, we can buy you some more stuff later. You're going to be okay. And he readjusted and reclocked his parameters of what he was doing. He's like, everything's okay. Your bike's still going. We're going to be fine. But it was like a 30-minute meltdown. I think he'd never actually done that. It was just what you said. It was like, this is the adventure part. This will later be the only story of the whole trip. That and the other 3 times he crashed. This is the part you're going to remember because you kept going. You got through it. But anyway.
Yeah, no, you're right. One of the greatest things is perspective, being able to get out on the road and you think these things are challenges or something like that. It's a flat. It's not that big of a deal, but then you conquer it and you feel like you really did something, and you just get different perspective.
Maybe that says something about who we are too. As people, we realize how easy things are compared to how hard it sometimes feels. Right? We need to go challenge ourselves and do something that's remotely difficult compared to our day-to-day that seems difficult in the moment, but it isn't.
Well, I was going to say, I think my most memorable rides are ones where it doesn't go perfect because you don't remember the ones that like are absolutely flawless.
What I was going to say is which ones went flawlessly. I never had one of those. I've never even ridden home.
I mean,
swear to God.
that's one of the reasons I love riding vintage bikes because you never, you can think that bike is so well sorted, you can put tons of miles on it, and it can still break, it can still go wrong, and you can still be stuck out in the middle of nowhere.
What happens after it breaks is where the amazing stuff happens. That's when you can end up meeting some random person in some random part of some random country, and that's the experience that really sticks with you. And I can vouch for everything you guys are saying. All the greatest things I've ever done have been the result of terrible decisions in awkward situations that I should not have been in if I was using rational judgment. But using irrational judgment, you find this amazing stuff that ultimately is what you carry with you for the rest of your life.
Well, I mean, let's face it too. Like, riding motorcycles is kind of an irrational thing to do as a pastime, right? I mean,
No, it's completely rational. Sorry, I'm not gonna support that statement. I'm going to stay with my head buried in the sand.
okay.
Motorcycle
Right.
is the best way to do
How about-
everything.
Statistically, riding a motorcycle is not the best idea.
Yeah.
Honda Civic, that's the best way to do it.
Right.
I want to tell the story about my France trip and my $1,000 or €1,000 chain, but I'm not going to get into it. Remind me to tell you that story another time, but it's the best part. It really is. The stuff that really screwed you up and you thought you were going to die.
Yep.
Right. And so we were talking about flat tires, and Alan was asking you if you still had that tube in there, but you don't. And
Wait, yeah, so what happened?
Right. So one of my decisions in my very personal bike decision is I like to run a full knobby on, as far as tires go.
Yeah,
So like a
too.
full
well,
DOT.
because you're planning for 80% off-road.
Right.
Like 80-20 means you're running a barely legal tire.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd much rather have the traction when I need it than, be able to pull.
For it to wear an extra 4,000 miles. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And I've ridden this tire before. I've ridden this many miles on it, and I knew it would be able to last if I did that much off-road. And since I had already put so many miles on the pavement, it was wearing really fast, and I ended up knowing where I would be going. I went ahead and stopped and changed to a more dual sport tire. So I found
I wondered about that. I saw it on there.
Yeah, so I found a shop that they're really good guys. They let me pull into the shaded area and back and pull my own, tires, and then they installed them.
But all right, that shop, that experience, that's the part that I'm talking about. Like, things didn't go right. Like, you had this plan. I'm going to do 80% dirt. I'm going to use this tire. I'm going to do this. And then plans didn't go right. You burned through that tire because you had to do a bunch of pavement to solve other problems. But then at the end of the day, you ended up finding a shop that could take care of what you needed. You found people that were there, that were cool, that you enjoyed being with, that were there to support you. And there's no way to plan for that. And that part of the adventure ride is the part that I am always like, that's the part that I love at the end of the day. When I get back from the ride, that's the part I think about.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned the people earlier, and in the shop, the guys there were great. But even just about everywhere I stopped, when you're riding solo, I stop somewhere to get gas, or I'll step into a bar and sit next to someone, and it just always sparks up a conversation, right? Especially like, where are you coming from? You say Austin, and they're like, what the hell? Did you ride that bike all the way here? Like, yeah, my ass is very sore.
I remember being in France, and I'd pull over at like a side thing on the freeway, and people would walk up and they'd be like, in French, Texas? What? What?
Yeah.
What are you doing here? No way. Yeah, I rode it across the ocean. Yeah, it's the best. You were suddenly not that scary. You could talk to everyone if you're flying solo on a bike.
Yeah, and then
Go ahead.
you find someone that has any background in motorcycles, and it's just this endless,
Camaraderie, yeah.
Like, the conversation's great, and I have a whole list of people I met, their names and everything that I met on the way, just to remember all the conversations I had.
Okay, hang on 1 second. Think about it. The last time you went on a road trip in a car, how many people did you meet that you actually got their name and contact information?
That's a good point.
None.
Yep.
Absolutely none. You don't talk to anybody at the gas station when they're in their car. You don't talk to anybody at the airport. You don't talk to anybody at the train station.
When was the last time any one of you guys stayed in a hotel room with 4 random guys from New Hampshire on Harleys
Sure.
that you'd never met before? Yeah, did that.
And this is how we come back to the motorcycle being a completely rational choice for transportation because of how it influences your social engagement. It's amazing.
That squealing?
That's your air conditioner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reach up there.
And just kind of just pound right on the revival.
Get your Fonzie
it
skills
stopped.
out.
It stopped.
All right.
All right. So what I was going to say. Yeah. So I had a moment. I was on the Blue Ridge Parkway, and I met these guys at a turnout, and ended up staying in a hotel room with them. I'm really condensing this story. We ended up going out to dinner and hanging out and riding. I'm on a KTM, and they're all on their Harleys. They'd ridden all the way from New Hampshire all the way down, and blah blah blah. And I remember the next day I talked to my mom or something, told her that I'd done this, and she said, weren't you nervous they were going to rob you? And they told me the next morning that all of their wives had talked to them, and they were all nervous that I was going to rob all 4 of them.
Nice.
Their wives are nervous that this one kid on a dirt bike was going to take all their money. What I was going to say is what I'm really hearing here is quite a bit of preparation and understanding of how to prepare yourself for an off-road trip. You know, we've been talking about doing a Colorado glamping trip where someone, you know, went ahead with our gear so we could just ride all day and not think about too much of this. You're shaking your head because you don't like the idea?
I'd like to do that, but it's that's a different experience. Like, it's
Stefan wants to be a filth pig and eat gas station food.
Oh,
There
yeah,
you-
okay. So
yeah.
you can go on the B trip, and I'll be on the A trip where scotch and bacon shows
but
up for me.
It almost like kind of goes against the grain of what we're even kind
I
of
want
talking
to
about
ride.
here.
I know what you're saying, but I want to ride motorcycles, and I guarantee you, if we're on a day ride and we meet a point where there's a van that shows up that takes care of some of these things for us, there will still be some adventure involved. I'll get to sleep in something a little more comfortable. Regardless, I'm interested in doing it. I'd like to invite some people to go. Are you interested in helping plan it and going on that trip, or does that not sound good to you because you have to deal with other people and their timelines?
No, I think the 2 trips you're describing are one doesn't replace the other or try to
Right,
be the
Right.
same.
Yeah.
Right. One
Yeah.
is actually a vacation. The other one is almost like this challenge. Like, this is like climbing Everest or whatever else, and
Yeah.
it's something that you've got to go do for yourself.
I did that. I think I'm getting too old to challenge myself.
Yeah,
in
I
that
mean,
way.
even after this trip, I was thinking about that. Yeah, it'd be nice to have a support vehicle and
There's an air mattress waiting on you,
and be able to go a little harder on the trail and actually
and know there were
lighter
some other
bike.
people there to take care of you. Yeah.
And sometimes you do like being able to share with other people and experience it together. There's something to be said for that.
And the biggest thing there, like, so we haven't talked too much about it, but yeah, I've spent a bit of time doing some adventure riding and did a trip from Minneapolis through the U.S., through Mexico, Guatemala, etc., a bunch of stuff. And that trip was done with a group of 3 of us. So there's me and 2 other friends. And because I had those 2 other people with me, we were able to make bad decisions on a regular basis.
Very, very unprepared.
Yeah.
Very
yeah.
unprepared.
We spent some time preparing. I didn't have to send anything home, and I didn't buy all that much stuff other than a guitar when I was on the trip. But
Necessities.
yeah,
Wait,
necessities.
hold on. You spent some time preparing. Is it the morning you guys put your shit on your bikes? Because, I mean, there was a CX500 involved.
Yeah. It's a different story. And, like, we can get into that in a different time. But the point of it is that because I had these 2 other people there, we were able to make terrible choices in the moment. So when we're sitting in the Guatemalan rainforest in a rainstorm, and it's pouring, and we get this whole group of about 20 people come up the trail that we're on saying, "Don't go that way," and we look at them and go, "Okay," and we go that way anyway, which is, it felt like the wrong choice. It felt like the worst decision we were making. But what it produced was this treacherous, scary, terrifying ride down this ravine, down this valley, down into the bottom of this basin where all the water's collecting. Well, it's a rainstorm in a rainforest, so there's a lot of water. That lot of water washed out the bridge, which was the only bridge, and the terrain going back the other way was unacceptable. But some locals had put a few bamboo poles across this washed out bridge, and that was just enough. They were just wide enough to walk the bike across. And that experience for me changed the game. Like, that was such a amazing thing, and that's one of my most cherished memories. But I wouldn't have been able or willing to do that if I was by myself. In fact, I needed somebody with bad judgment to push me to go and make this bad choice, because
Sounds like our partnership.
yeah, there's parallels all over the place. But that's the thing, is by yourself you do have to protect, you do have to guard, you do have to be careful. And if you have some more people and some more support and some more resources, you can make riskier decisions because the consequences are
That's what I
controlled.
meant. We could ride harder if there was 5 or 6
Yep.
people involved, and there was going to be someone looking for us at the end of the trail and all that. Yeah. I want to do it. I want you to help plan it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. You got to ride your BMW, though. You can't ride a dirt bike. Sorry. It'll run really good in the mountains.
If we're gonna take the van, can we just take multiple bikes?
Oh,
Like
there'll be
today.
plenty of stuff there and
alright.
a spare. You can count on that. Yeah.
Let's do that.
I want to make that happen. I'd love to do that. And, in the spring or fall, we keep saying we're going to do it. We need to quit talking and do. That's what I'm saying. Andy, are you awake over there?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well,
Are you gonna have your Tiger ready to go?
I have no idea.
I'm still looking for him a motor. Gonna find him one so he doesn't have to put that last one back together. All right. Well, I think we're gonna wrap. Thanks for for coming back.
Well, hold on.
alive.
Before we do that, I don't know.
Oh,
Let's see.
What do you have to say?
I would like to know one riding technique that you like. Anything that you gleaned out of like riding. Is there anything that you would suggest to people that are new to dual sporting or adventure riding? Like, what is a technique that they should think about? And then also, what was your favorite moment from the trip?
As far as technique goes, it's a common mantra, of course, that most people know, is to be up on the pegs, right? If you're doing any climbing or anything like that, you
Increase control.
Control. You get your weight on the pegs. You can do a lot more with the bike. But when and actually one of the best moments was climbing Ophir Pass, which it's in Colorado. It goes from Ophir, the village, Ophir. I don't ever know how to say that one, but it goes over the pass to 550, which is the $1 Million Highway, and it's this just really beautiful area, and it goes up to almost 12,000 feet of elevation. And so I start climbing this solo, and it's loose rock, scree, and little ledges, and I'm tired and I want to sit down, and then the bike starts bouncing all over, and as soon as you get back up on those pegs, like that's just you put the throttle in and you just keep climbing. And I'm climbing this trail, and I see two bikes ahead of me, and I want to catch them so I can kind of talk to them, and because I don't know what I'm getting into. I could fall off the side of this mountain. I don't know how far, if it's going to get worse, because I'm kind of at my limit at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I see these guys, and they've stopped, and I pull up almost next to them, and they take off because they're trying to stay out of my way, right? This is a climb where you can't stop. If you stop and hold the front brake, your bike just slides. You have to learn to use the rear brake.
Quite steep.
Yeah, I mean, there's just, you slide, it's down. There's no way to stop unless you're at a switchback. And so they take off, and I keep following again, and they stop again, and this time I catch them, and turns out it's a local guy on a two-stroke, I think 450 something.
That
KTM.
Giant.
Probably not that big, but yeah.
That's a giant two-stroke. Yeah.
It was a two-stroke. But I get up there, and the other rider is a 10-year-old little boy named Zephyr, and he is on a 50cc, and the bike keeps overheating, and so they're stopping to pull snow, and he's packing the radiator.
What?
Yeah.
That's one way of getting it cooler for a minute. Yeah.
Yeah, I stop and talk to him, and he's a super nice guy.
Sounds like they need to put the snow in the radiator, but I could be mistaken here.
He seemed to know what he was doing, but I talked to him for a bit and explained my trip, and it's the first time his 10-year-old son has been on the pass, and he cranks the bike up, and the father cranks the bike up and just wraps it out, and he's like, all right, Zephyr, the kid, he calls him Z, he's like, Z, get on there, and he just pin it to win it, and a little kid gets on the bike, and I have this on video too because I had my GoPro rolling, and the little kid just fearless just pins it, right?
Yeah.
And he just takes off, and then the father, I think his name is Daniel, he's like, you go ahead, I'll catch up, and I'm like, I don't want him to see me try to take.
I don't want to keep up with this kid either.
Yeah. And
being bested by a 10-year-old on a 50cc is sort of humbling.
Right. But I mean, he's fearless. He's also much closer to the ground.
Trust me, when I was 10, no fear. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So
I'm a scaredy put cat now.
But we play leapfrog a few times, and we're almost to the summit, and they're pulled over again, and I keep on past him, and another nice guy to me, right? He's just like cheering me on, just complete stranger, and he's like shouting things at me, like things like stay on the pegs and stay in it and just keep going, and get to the summit, and there's the sign there, and I park, and the guy comes up with his son. His son makes it, and it's this like momentous occasion where we've all made it to the top of this mountain on our bikes, and we've met new people, and then we take pictures and all that stuff, more selfies, all of that. But that by far was the best moment. I mean, it's also the best scenery of the whole trip.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
And, man, you're like I get goosebumps because I know exactly what you're talking about, and that makes the entire trip. That makes all the suffering. That makes everything you experience completely worthwhile.
Yeah.
At least it does for me.
No, it totally does. Well, you had two questions. There was another one.
Yeah, it was the stand up and kind of be on the pegs, be on your balls.
Yeah,
it was like a technical
the tip and what was the best
and then
moment.
what was the
Yeah.
best moment.
Yeah.
And that was perfect. It just kind of all segues right together. So
Yeah.
brilliant.
That's awesome. Now I want to go somewhere.
Yeah, let's go ride motorcycles.
I don't know how. Could you guys teach me?
Sure, you got to keep up.
Motorcycles are stupid.
I keep up. I pass you when you're on the ground.
Challenge.
I lose you for a while,
Hey.
but then I find you.
Challenge accepted.
I want to plan it, and I mean that I don't even know where to begin with regards to Colorado or headed that direction. But I want to do cooler temps, nice passes. Yeah, we gotta make something happen, and I want to have scotch at the end of the day.
You boys like Mexico?
No. Well, there is talk of moving the Handbuilt Showdown to Mexico City, and I'm going to go down there in August and try to do a little, checking. Plus, Becca's going down there for a while. She's going to start looking for venues for us. If that works out, a ride to Mexico City doesn't seem like a bad idea to me.
Pretty good excuse to go down there.
Right. We'd have to,
I've also heard that the Copper Canyon, in comparison to the Grand Canyon, could be worth seeing.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, and we've talked about going down to our buddy's place down there, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a good idea. All right. Well, maybe that. Maybe we do that.
Yeah, I've got people in Mexico. We're good.
You do have people. Your sister.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, dude, thanks for holding off on the stories. You didn't just repeat these for these guys, did you?
No, I think they've heard a few of them, but I appreciate you listening.
Dude, I was excited about this.
Yeah.
You have no, seriously. I was holding on. I was like, no. I want to wait because there's, to get dedicated time, it takes this for us to sit down, get, whether the camera's rolling or the mic is rolling or not is kind of irrelevant because it doesn't matter to me. But capturing that, I think that this is something you'll listen back to later, your energy level for it. Maybe we should plan this ahead. And next time that is like the day you get back or the day after you get back, we sit down and chat about it when you're still all high and pumped from it.
I mean, I can take another 2 weeks if you'd like. Do another trip and come back and do
No,
it.
because we missed you entirely too much.
Yeah.
No, you're entirely too integral to the team. Sorry. No more vacation. We're changing all that.
All right.
Andy, you ready to go for a ride?
I'm always ready to go for a ride.
Awesome. All right, let's end this like we do the dailies. Thanks, guys. Like, comment, subscribe, follow us. Tell us you love us. Tell us you hate us. Go get your hands dirty and ride some fucking motorcycles.